Hi, folks. Steve Urban here. Today's episode of the Riderflex podcast is sponsored by Marketing 360. My good friend JB Kellogg and his team do such a fantastic job for us and so many other companies. Marketing 360 is the number one platform for small business, and it's everything you need to grow your business. If you need marketing support, I really encourage you to contact them at marketing360.com/Riderflex, and we'll add that link to the description of this episode for easy reference. And on today's episode of the Riderflex podcast, we have the co-founder and co-CEO of WorkGenius, Marlon Rosenzweig. WorkGenius is the end-to-end freelance platform that uses AI to connect companies to freelancers on demand and at scale. Learn more about them at workgenius.com. Marlon Rosenzweig on the Riderflex podcast. How you doing, Marlon?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm hanging in there. I'm hunkered down, like we all are, right?
Yeah, it's interesting times.
It really is. But let's not dwell on that. Let's stay positive, because this podcast will live forever, not just during this crazy coronavirus time. So we'll skip past it. Let's before we get into WorkGenius, let's learn about Marlon. Can you just give us? I think you grew up maybe in Germany, but you went to school in the UK or London. What? Give us the family, where you grew up, some early childhood stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm originally from Germany. I was born in the south, in a city called Stuttgart, where all the cars are manufactured, and then I moved up to Hamburg, which is in the north, when I was about 10.
Okay.
So all of my seminal years I spent up there, and then when it was time to go off to university, I went to England. And I read philosophy, politics, and economics over there, and then basically returned after those university days to Germany to start the company there.
Now, how come? Why'd you go to school? Why didn't you go to school in Germany, college in Germany? What was the? Yeah, talk to me.
So I wanted to do economics, sort of understanding the economy and how to, make good decisions and all of that. And sort of I always had an affinity for math, which sort of is a huge part of economics. And then my parents insisted that I should do something more I guess classic, I suppose, and that really added sort of philosophy and politics to the mix. And then there was only England that offered that degree.
I see.
So that's why I ended up there. And I always wanted to sort of leave Germany and live somewhere else. And so, there was just a couple of things that came together. And
Okay.
that sort of, impacted the decision.
Okay. What'd your parents do?
Journalists. So they're very keen on developing the brain and understanding the world and, understanding where our values come from, and very, I guess, bookworms is what you call them.
Are they introverts, extroverts? What kind of personalities are they?
I guess more on the introverted side, I suppose.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but you're not like that though. You're somewhere in between.
Well, it depends what test I take, right? So sometimes that. No, I think I guess there's a common misconception around introverts and extroverts, right? I think it's not whether you're good with people or in groups, but it's like whether it consumes energy or not, right? Whether it's tiring.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I guess I'm somewhat in between, in the middle.
Okay. All right. Any brothers or sisters?
Nope, only child.
Okay.
Full attention on me. Yeah.
And are your folks still in Germany, or are they in the UK?
They are in Germany.
They are. Okay. What's the, before I walk you into some business stuff, what do Germans think of Americans? What's the general, when you're over there visiting with your family and friends, what's the, I'm just kind of curious. Tell me.
So it's actually interesting, right? So because I went to the UK studied with international kids, Spanish, French,
Right.
Norwegian, like Scandinavians in general. And I was always like, oh, I think, the Germans and the Americans, they're actually quite similar. And we're so dissimilar to the Spaniards and the Italians and the French, right? And then when I came over here, I was like, oh, the Germans are actually so different than the Americans. We're actually so much closer to the Italians and the French.
Is that
So
right?
the stereotypes don't really turn out to be true. But I think common understanding is Americans are all about growth, company, economy, less about history.
I see.
That is sort of the understanding, which, pays off handsomely. US is sort of the greatest economy in the world. Most innovative sort of healthcare system, all of it. It's all good.
And what about where are people more friendly? Now you see that you can't really answer that, right? Because if you
Of course I can.
okay,
America, all the way. No, Germans are so stiff and uptight, and it's
are
it's
they?
much
Are they?
easier. Yeah.
Okay, okay, all right. I was just curious. All right, so you're married? Any kids?
Married, no kids.
Married. Okay, and where's she from?
She's half Mexican, half English. So
And where'd you meet her though?
New York.
You met her in New York. Okay. Were you out and about in New York and you're like, hey, you see her
So
across
we were actually introduced by a friend who's half German, half Mexican, which is quite a unique mix.
All right.
But he was like, hey, you need to meet sort of my cousin's friend. She's in New York, and yeah, so we were introduced by him.
Wow, how many languages between you two do you speak? I'm gonna guess what, six or seven?
No, I wish. I a bit German, a bit of English on my side, and then for her it's English, Spanish, and she's learning German.
Is she's learning? Okay, so you can still talk about her with your friends when she's in the room a little bit.
Still, yeah, but she's progressing fast. She's
I
a fast learner.
bet yeah. She is. All right, so you go to school over in London. You're doing your thing. Talk to me about this friend. So you had your co-founder of WorkGenius. Were you high school buddies and then you went to college together, or you met him in college?
High school friends. So we've
All
known
right.
each other for more than 15 years. He studied in Munich while I was in England.
Okay.
And yeah, but we've sort of stayed in touch throughout
I
the
see.
years.
I see. So you didn't go to college. You didn't go to the same university. Okay. All right. But you went to high school together in Germany. All right. So talk to me. So you're in school. Did you have this entrepreneurial bug like as a high school kid? Like where did this entrepreneurial spirit and thing come from? Talk to me about that.
So I never sold lemonade, right? But
Okay.
I cleaned cars. I did some tutoring. So I was always working throughout high school
Okay.
and university. And
Okay.
then
Okay.
I guess the entrepreneurial spark was Litz when I worked in retail, fashion retail, folding T-shirts and jeans and that sort of thing.
The folding T-shirt story is real. I thought that was just for fun on with when I.
No, it's real. At the time,
Oh.
it was actually quite painful, right? But now, retrospectively, it's fine.
I
But back
see.
in, yeah, so
Okay.
the
All right.
folding T-shirts is real, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, go ahead. I cut you off. Go ahead. You're folding T-shirt. All right. Go ahead. You work in
Yeah, so
retail.
last year of university, during the summer or reading time, you go home, you stay with your parents. I was working in that retail shop with my best friend from high school. Both of us got fired with, not very good at folding T-shirts, evidently.
Fired on the same day, same time, within a month of each other. What was that?
That's it's up for dispute. I'm arguing we're sort of fired within sort of the same time frame, and then he said no, I was fired first, and then he was fired, right? So that's what he claims, but we're still discussing that every Christmas.
You guys must have been goofing off, probably just chasing girls or whatever.
No, we were good workers, but just not very good at folding T-shirts. And so we got fired, and we wanted to make money, right? We had about sort of 3 weeks left of that summer vacation,
Okay.
and needed to make money for the dorm and everything.
Before your senior year in college, is this in
Yeah.
between? Okay,
Yeah.
between junior and senior year. All right, so all right, I'm with you.
And so we applied to tons of companies, and sort of the common responses are like, "Hey guys, you're available for 3 weeks, right? It's just not worthwhile."
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
takes us 3 weeks to get you on the payroll and to get you onboarded, and then you have to go back to school. There's just no point.
Are you both living at
And
home? Are you both living at home during this period? Back
yeah,
at home?
at the
Yeah. Yeah.
time, yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And we were so annoyed, and that sort of basically coincided with the media talking about a skill shortage in Germany. It's like, oh, companies don't have enough talent. What are we going to do? We won't be able to grow our economy. We need to find more qualified people. And we were like, hey, hang on. There's two guys here that want to work, right? More or less qualified, but
Okay.
why
Okay.
did you hire us? And they were like, well, you're only available for 3 weeks. So what we realized then was, and now retrospectively, this sounds quite analytical, and at the time it wasn't, right? It was most of a conversation over dinner. But we realized, hey, okay, so the companies are not hiring us because there is so much overhead to identify good, workers that they want to hire, and then getting them on the payroll and onboarding them and all of it. So is there any way to leverage technology to reduce that overhead? And that was really the idea of WorkGenius, that we're like, hey, okay, why don't we use technology to make it easy for companies to find the right talent, to vet that talent, and to engage and work with them.
What year was this?
2012.
2012. Okay. Now, when you're drawing this up on the napkin, aren't there competitors already doing that? Weren't there freelance sites out there already?
Yeah. So there, at the time, what is now Upwork was Odesk and Elance. That was sort of the big one, and freelancer.com in Australia.
Okay.
But what we realized was that they acted more like, I guess, the yellow pages, right? So you log on to Elance, and there's 16 million freelancers, and you have to select them yourself. And sort of the feedback that we've gotten from the people that we talked to was like, hey, most of the time it's hit or miss. It creates so much overhead finding good people there. It's not really worthwhile. That's why we want to continue hiring people sort of the traditional way and full time. And we're like, hey, okay, that's a challenge that we want to take on and that we want to solve with technology.
Okay. Well, this is all great idea, but you got 3 weeks before school starts. So go ahead. So how do you? We can draw this up and start a company in 3 weeks and then go back to class. So go ahead.
No, and that's what I meant, right? It sounds very analytical, and at the time it definitely wasn't, right? So the puzzles came together throughout the years, but I basically returned to school. I got a job as a research assistant in economics, which really helped. Sort of, I worked for one of my lecturers, and he worked on mechanism design, which is actually sort of, accidentally quite relevant to what we were trying to do, because how do you design incentives for people, to deliver good work and to do that in a timely fashion and all of this. And so I combined my work at the university with sort of building that idea of building a technology platform that makes it easy for companies to find people and also work with them. And a huge part of that is motivation of the people that you work with, right? You want to incentivize them correctly. And so I basically borrowed a little bit of what I learned during that work at the university.
And you're still drawing it up. Is the entity or the company already founded at that point? Do you guys have any paperwork on anything, or this is just ideas still back and forth?
So we officially started June 2012, right? That's when we were like, so we graduated, both of us, and then we're like, okay, let's just give it a shot. I really wanted to, I either was going to do a master's or start working for an investment bank. So that was, that was basically the fork that I was looking at. And then we were like, hey, we're young. I think this is good timing. Unemployment is very low. So why don't we give this a shot for a year and see how it works?
Right after graduation.
Right out of graduation, yeah.
Okay, you could. So you call your buddy and you're like, "Hey, are we going to take these regular jobs, or are we going to start this thing?" And you're like, "Let's do it."
And he had already signed an employment contract, so he had to pull out of that and all of it. It was quite messy for him.
And okay, now how are you going to eat and live, and like talk to me about revenue, and how did you survive during this period when you're like, yeah, we're not going to take jobs, we're going to start this company?
Yeah, so we found an angel investor who gave
Ooh,
us 50,000 euros,
okay.
which, sounds not like much. And it's probably not much, but at the time it was sort of, quite a bit of money. And for us, it paid for a year of our salaries plus
Plus,
plus the money that we paid to the engineer to build the platform. So
but neither,
we were very
okay.
lean from the start.
But neither one of you guys were software engineers.
Nope. No,
Wow,
my
wow,
partner is
wow.
a sort of business major, and yeah.
So an angel investor said, okay, I know neither one of you guys are developers or neither one of you guys are tech guys, but I'm going to write you a $50,000 check. And you got to, and he knows, and the investor knows you're going to use some of it for payroll. You have to, because you got to eat, right?
Yeah, I mean, we already had a prototype by then, right? We built an MVP with our own
okay.
funds, so we
Okay.
invested about $5,000 ourselves
I see.
to get something off the ground, and then
Mm.
that's how we secured that investment.
All right. And your first employee wasn't really even an employee. It's probably a 1099 contractor helping you, a developer of some kind.
Exactly. Yeah, we ate our own dog food from the very beginning.
Okay. Now, all right. So, and where are you living? You guys getting an apartment together at the time, or how are you? What'd you do? Did you move?
Parents.
Okay.
Parents.
Back to parents. But you can't. How are you running the business together if he's living at his parents, you're living at your parents? What do you guys talk? I mean, are you? How are you doing this?
Well, that's where we were living, right? Working, we were for a little bit at his place, and then we basically, the angel investor gave us sort of like a little sort of room storage.
Oh, I see.
In his office, and then we.
How much? Okay, did you have to give up control of did you have to give this person equity? Was it a convertible note? Like what?
Equity.
Equity. But you guys are still in control at this point, I'm guessing.
Yep.
You're still in. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you had to give away a piece of your company to get the startup money, but at least you had enough money to get going, is what I hear you saying.
Exactly.
All right. Walk me into how soon are you hitting revenue? When are checks hitting the bank for you? How long did that take?
That was almost right away. Right.
Really?
So right away we called companies. We're like, hey, can we get this work for you done? They were like, yeah, sure. Have you worked with freelancers? Yeah, but it sucks. Hit or miss. We don't want to do that. Hey, there's a novel approach to this. We're gonna vet the freelancers for you, and sort of we're gonna give you a guarantee that the result is going to be up to par and it's going to be delivered on time.
Wow.
And they were like, sure, yeah, we pay you once the work is done. So it's pretty risk-free for them. And
I see.
that worked very well. In our second year, we had sort of this six-figure EBITDA positive.
Nice. That's wow. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
So you're cash flow positive with a decent EBITDA number in your second year. Good for you. All right. Wow.
Yep.
Very good. Okay. And you didn't take on any more money at this time, right? Just that one.
Exactly. Well, we did afterwards. So our angel investor, who's sort of a great advisor as well, basically said, hey guys, it seems like you're onto something, right? There might be competition sort of coming up on the horizon. Why don't we raise money and grow the company faster than we're currently growing? Which is what we did. So we then raised money from family offices that we were introduced to, that really liked the business model. They liked the fact that we were sort of, we had revenue, we were cash flow positive, which gave us quite sort of a strong position to negotiate.
No doubt.
The company.
No doubt about it. Would you call those continued early seed rounds, or was you classifying that as a Series A, or how were you bucketing that?
I'm not big on labels. I don't know.
That's so funny, right? Everybody, right? They always try to they make a big deal out of what it's called. I don't know. We had an investor give us cash, and we gave him some equity.
I mean, is it determined by the number of rounds that you do? Is it determined by the check size? Is it determined by whom it comes from? I don't know.
I saw something the other day in Crunchbase. It's like Series G or like Series G or something. I'm like, okay.
Right. Okay.
Whatever.
Okay. Sure. Whatever works.
All right. Okay. Give us the, overview today. Like, so as of now, just give us the 5-minute WorkGenius overview. Go for it.
Okay. So WorkGenius is a digital workforce provider. We make it easy for companies to unleash the power of freelancing. within their own workforces, which means we have 400,000 professional white-collar freelancers on our platform. Out of those, we find the right freelancer for the project that our clients have. We leverage AI technology for that, plus NLP, to really understand what the skill sets are that are needed in this particular case. And then we do all of the back office work for our clients as well. That's fully automated, which means the intellectual property rights are assigned, globally unrestricted. We make sure that the funds are flowing the right way. We make sure that there are NDAs in place. We issue the 1099s for our clients. So we do all of the heavy lifting, and we do that with the help of technology, which means that our clients sort of have a tremendous time to value, right? Once they initiate a project, within 28 minutes, we have a freelance team working on it. And then they don't incur almost no overhead sort of managing that team and paying that team, which historically has been sort of a huge burden on organizations working with freelancers, that they had to sort out the invoices and the contracting and all of that. At this point, we are 75 employees globally. Our headquarters are in Hamburg, Germany, and then we have an office here in New York City, with about 20 people now, sort of serving the US market.
Wow, congratulations that you've got it to this size. What's the difference between you and a staffing and recruiting firm that floats out contractors? I know some people here in Denver where I'm based. There's some companies here, and they call themselves recruiting firms, but really they just got a bunch of 1099 contractors sitting around that they float out for projects. How would you define the difference there?
Yep, two things. One, we do remote professional freelancers. So we don't do on-premise. We don't place people in the office. Okay. That's distinction number one. Distinction number two is we do everything fully automated with technology. So we don't have any operations people that go through CVs or look at sort of the, what they call a rec, right? Like a requirement sheet from the clients. All of that is automated. So we have almost no operational expenses. Everything's done with technology, which means that we can do it faster, right?
And cheaper.
Because and cheaper, yeah, if you wish.
Okay, better value, however you want to define it.
I like the sound of that better.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, all right, gotcha. All right, very good. Okay, all right. Now, is your buddy, your friend, he's CEO too? Like both of you guys have CEO in your title, unless I saw it wrong.
Yeah, we're co-CEOs of the holding company, and then he's in charge of all of Europe, and I'm in charge of all of the US.
Okay, so tell me about the time when you and him are like in the conference room and just going at it, and and your employees have to separate you.
That never happened. I mean, we're best friends, right? So I think that helps us a lot. And then I think just our personalities, we're like very, my wife might disagree, but like very reasonable, calm, sort of, non-erratic, non-emotional people, where we can just talk about things like, hey, I think this is right. I think, you're not right. And this is sort of the data that backs this up. What do you say? Oh yeah, makes sense. I think, there's a little bit of, uncertainty around this. Okay, let's assign a probability. Okay, and then, weighted by probability, we believe that to be right. And, you get to the right answer by just sort of, discussing it.
Do you have like a coin that you flip if you just can't make a decision, and you just, he wants red, you want blue, and then what do you do?
We've never been at that point.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's great. I mean, to last that long, first of all, to have it for that many years as co-CEOs and not have some sort of blow up. I mean, that's a major accomplishment, really. Congratulations on that. I mean, that takes a lot of work.
It does absolutely. It's a relationship like any other, right? Yeah. And you need to work on it.
Wow. Okay, I'm impressed. By the way, he seems a little more reserved than you. He seems like maybe a little quieter. Is that accurate or no?
Where are you getting that from?
I don't know. I saw him on YouTube somewhere. I found him somewhere. I can't remember.
Okay. Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Daniel, right? His name's Daniel.
His name is Daniel. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I was trying to do as much homework as I could. I was like, I wonder how this is working. Co-CEO stuff. All right. Very good.
It's actually quite common in Europe. It's
Oh,
just
it
in the
is.
US where, yeah,
Oh, okay.
happens all the time.
If you and him are both on vacation, who's in charge?
We don't go on vacation at the same time normally. Nowadays we have, a phenomenal leadership team around us,
Awesome.
and they can run the show when we're not there.
Let's talk about that for a minute. Tell me what kind of culture did you purposely try to build with your employees? Tell me about it.
I think one of ownership, right? And it sounds quite corny, but that's not how we mean it. It's truly that they own a part of the business.
Ah,
We want them to feel free to take decisions themselves. They can make mistakes like we all do. I'm very big on making mistakes regularly, but you need to recover from them faster and don't do them again. So we basically encourage that, because one of the things we understood very early on is if you don't empower the people that you work with to take those decisions and take ownership, you will end up with a principal agent problem, throughout the history of the company. You will always need to monitor, and that it's quite honestly, it's quite tedious. So we were like, that doesn't scale. We don't really like to do that. We just want to be able to rely on people. And how can you rely on people? Well, allow them to make mistakes and allow them to benefit if they get it right.
Very good. Okay. Now you've hired a bunch of people so far, and you had to kind of teach yourself how to do that. It wasn't like you had a bunch of training on it. You just, boom, you owned a company, and all of a sudden you're a CEO and you're hiring employees. But you've been doing it for a few years now. What are a couple of your favorite interview questions? What are your little things you like to do in an interview to determine whether or not this person fits?
I think it really depends sort of what position you're hiring for. And I think what I've seen is that is sort of the mistake that hiring managers make the most, is that they're not clear what type of person they need for that role, right? One thing is sort of what is the expectation around what that person does? And the second thing is how would I like that person to do that type of job, right? So what type of personality am I looking for? And depending on that, you sort of adjust your questions, right? And there's certain roles that require a super high level of professionalism and analytical skills, right? And there's others where you're like, hey, I want you to make sure that the team comes together and they huddle well and all of that, which is a very different personality from the other.
You just touched on a nerve for me. We try to get the hiring managers to tell us everything up front, because you're right. The hiring manager has got to be super ass clear about everything before the search and the interviewing begins. And when it's not clear, it can get messy really fast.
And I think I think it's also fine to say, I don't know yet, right? If you say, hey, I'm hiring a VP of operations, I've never hired a VP of operations. I don't know whether that is someone who needs to consolidate stakeholders, right? Needs to be a strong communicator and all of that, or whether you need an anally retentive person that, acts very well in Excel spreadsheets and just makes sure that all processes are in place, but is not very good at communicating that. But we put that on someone else, right? It really depends on your organization, how you define those different functions. So I think sometimes, you can blame the hiring manager, especially sort of in more established organizations. They should really know what they're looking for. But if you look at, sort of more nascent companies like ours, well, a lot of the roles have never been open before. We've never hired for that. We don't even know what we're looking for. We need someone to do that type of job, but, we don't really know how that's supposed to be done. So I think that's the crux here a little bit.
Good point. Let me ask this, from an entrepreneurial advice perspective. If you were talking to, let's just say you're talking to a couple of guys in college, they got an idea, they want to start a business. You've done that, you lived it. What would you tell them? What are a few things, just 30,000 foot pieces of advice you would tell some young folks coming out of school that want to start something?
I want to be encouraging, but I think, the first thing is the first 2-3 years will be sheer agony, right? It's just you need to figure things out. Your plans will not work. Yeah, you have a plan B. Guess what? That one will fail too, right? You're probably going to be on plan E, right? Before anything starts working. And that was the same for us, right? I mean, I ate rice and ketchup for the first 2 years, right? That's it's not good for your body, uh, but you have to do what you got to do. So I think if you want to start a business,
Be
be
ready.
aware it
Be
can be
ready.
one of the yeah,
Yeah.
it can be one of the most rewarding experiences, but it's going to be painful, right? So don't be naive about it. I think that's number one. And then start thinking and start talking to people very early on, about what is the value that I'm creating for these people, right? And who am I going to talk to? Do they have the budget? Can they sign off on it? What is truly their pain point, right? Is it just finding the freelancer, or is it qualifying the freelancer that, in our case? And then we found out, oh yeah, well, finding freelancers and qualifying them is not the issue, but the time that it takes to do all of that is an issue. Oh, okay, so we need to automate this. Fair, got it. Then working with them, oh, it's so painful because you need to fill in timesheets. Okay, so let's build a platform that automatically captures timesheets. So doing all of these things, and you can do that as you go along, but the more homework you do in the beginning, right, the higher the probability that your plan B or C works out and you don't have to go all the way to ERF.
Because you guys have pivoted, right? I mean, wasn't it called My Little Job before you changed it to WorkGenius?
Yeah, I mean, we never really pivoted our business model. We got lucky in that respect, but we changed the branding. We started out matching university kids to online jobs,
right?
And then these kids graduated, and we're like, oh, okay, now we need to move into the professional freelance realm, right? Because we got all of these graduated kids on the platform now, and so we were basically nudged in that direction. But it was always sort of, the same business model, connecting freelance talent and companies and making it extremely easy for them to find each other and work together.
Did you have some advisors or investors that encouraged you to rebrand to WorkGenius? How'd that come about?
I think it came about, well, two things. One, they started to graduate, the talents, right? And we were like, well, it's probably not so cool if you are 23 and you're telling your mom that you work on My Little Job. Right? You'd rather want to be like, hey, I'm a freelancer on WorkGenius. Sounds a little bit better than My Little Job. So I think that was one. And then the second thing is just we hit the American market, right? We expanded over here. And just the feedback we got here was like, My Little Job, it's, we weren't taking as seriously as we wanted to. And, some of our invoices are like in the 6 to 7 figures. And then you have a procurement department calling you and they're like, hey, what is this My Little Job? Right? Like, why are you invoicing us? Like,
that's pretty funny.
Hundreds of thousands, this makes no sense. So that's why we had to change.
That's pretty good. Okay. And by the way, it is workgenius.com, right? Workgenius.com.
Workgenius.com.
Do you have any of those college kids that were freelancers for you back in the day? Any of those guys still with you now? Just curious.
They are. The stories that make us the proudest, though, is people that were freelancers when they were students and they joined companies and now they're our clients. So they're like, hey, I love WorkGenius. I worked through My Little Job at the time, right? Now WorkGenius. That is really what makes us really proud, because we're like, hey, we gave you a great experience when you were a freelancer and now you're sort of one of our clients, which is shifting, right? Nowadays, millennials, 75% of them want to work as freelancers. They're not seeking traditional employment. So I think, we'll probably see less and less of that, but it's still a fantastic feeling.
That's interesting. That's really cool that you've had those relationships for that long. I mean, really, congratulations. You guys are obviously great at that. How'd you decide to be the one to come to the U.S. instead of your partner? I forgot to ask.
I studied in England. So it was like, just from a language perspective, it makes a bit more sense.
I see.
And then I think we needed someone like Daniel in the headquarters who keeps everything sort of consolidated and together. And he's just so much better at that than I am. So that's why we decided that, he should guard the fortress, and then I'll do the expansion.
Did you learn English growing up in Germany? Is that automatic? I don't know.
Yeah, so in high school, you have classes.
I see.
Sort of high school is confusing. So when you start, I guess what you guys call middle school,
Okay.
right? So after elementary school or primary school. So when you're 10 or 11, you start taking courses in English as part of your sort of normal school curriculum.
I see. Very cool. I got two more questions for you as we hit wrap up here. And by the way, congratulations on what you've built so far. I mean, you've already had it for 8 years now, so you've already kind of beat the curve on a lot of startups that fail. You've been in business for that long, and you've done it with the same co-founder, and you guys haven't killed each other, and you're both still called co-CEO, and the business has grown. Plus, you're cash flow positive. You're making money. You got employees. I mean, that's not a small accomplishment, my friend. I mean, that's a big deal. And I'm guessing you guys are still in control of the business. And so, I mean, hey, kudos. Hats off to you guys for what you've done so far.
Thank you very much.
I want to ask you these two final questions. If you could call yourself coming out of college right now, or actually, let's do it this way. If you could call the kid during that summer in between your junior and senior year at college when you were home, what would you tell him right now today?
About what?
About the business, what advice would you give him? Say, hey, if you could call Marlon when he was, I'm going to guess you were 19 or 20 then, what would you tell him?
Keep on going, I guess.
But you did that already. You did that. Would you tell him to do anything different?
Oh yeah, tons of things. I mean, I don't even know into how much granular detail I would need to go. Right? There's so many mistakes we made.
Pick one for me.
Pick one.
Don't call it My Little Jobs.
No, I mean that's an easy one. That doesn't count. I guess from the start, maybe listen more to your customers as opposed to basically clinging on to your product vision that you have.
Good.
But I think being able to just being flexible around that and saying like this is our North Star, that's where we want to go, but we also understand that sometimes clients are not ready for like radical change, right? So we need to build sort of an intermediary solution that will sort of cater to their needs.
Very good. Last question. If you had to put your so-called core purpose in life into a sentence, what would that sound like?
Core purpose.
Yeah. Why is Marlon getting up every day, walking around on this planet? What's the core purpose for you?
I mean, I just know what I thoroughly, and this is probably not the answer that you're looking for, but it's like solving challenges is something that I thoroughly enjoy. And that could be something like figuring out, like strategy for the company, but also understanding people, making them grow in the roles that they're in, like construing plans of how to grow them to the next level, just like something that's hard and difficult, and then finding a solution to it. But I know it sounds very unorthodox, but it's truly what gets me up in the morning. If everything is smooth sailing, I get bored and yeah.
All right. Very good. Oh, I like that. Does that ever get you in trouble with your wife? Because you're always trying to fix stuff and she's like, no. Right now, I just need you to listen to me. I don't want you to fix it.
Every now and then.
Oh, very good. Marlon, congrats. I really appreciate you being on the Riderflex show. I'm going to hit stop on the recording, but if you can hang on just a second before you hang up, okay? Thanks so much and congratulations.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks for having me.
You bet. The Riderflex podcast features entrepreneurs, business executives, and the stories behind how they got there, as well as daily tips on career advice and job interviews. Our show can be heard just about anywhere these days, but you can visit riderflex.com and click on the podcast page to hear all the previous episodes and learn more about the recruiting and consulting services we provide. Contact us at the email address info@riderflex.com or 888-964-5876. Thanks so much for listening, and if you enjoy our show, please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like the episodes.